Hello and welcome to Eliza's Notes, a space where I can rant and rave for your entertainment. Today, it's all in the title. We'll be talking about some hard truths, about what it's like to move to the city of lights and love, and rats, and pee. I say this from a place of love. For context, I moved to Paris in August 2023, so last year, with my partner, and we used to live in Sydney together before that, so now we're in a tiny little studio. So romantic. By this point, you're probably thinking, Eliza, why on earth did you uproot your life and move to the other side of the planet? I wish I had an easy answer for this, but honestly, it's hard to pinpoint one thing. I could talk about a lot of different reasons why. I've always loved languages, I've always loved traveling. I committed to learning French, and with my EU passport, it seemed like a great place to go, and my partner his French is actually better than mine, so it was logical. Here is the list in no particular order: the hustle and the bustle. I personally grew up in the suburbs. I always loved going into the city. It was really fun. I've talked to a lot of different people, and some people say that Sydney is overwhelming. I never thought Sydney was overwhelming. Paris is a completely different experience. So to do a little comparison, Paris has 12.4 million people in its metropolitan area. Sydney has 5.1 million people in its metropolitan area. Sydney has a bigger metropolitan area, but very low density, whereas Paris is a lot more dense. There are a lot of times where I could probably go for a little bit more peace and quiet in my daily life. For example, taking a walk means a lot of foot traffic, depending on where you go, a lot more noise, things happening, cars, bikes, but I don't have a problem with bikes. That's great. I think everyone should bike around. The streets of Paris are not exactly the cleanest. However, I will say they get a bad rap. People are always going on about how unclean Paris is. It's not bad. Look, I've seen worse. I've seen better. But, unless you're living in a tax haven like Monaco, where they get up and wash the streets every day, wear and tear. So I think the problem here is not necessarily the city. It is that I come from a smaller, less densely populated city. So what I'm saying here is I'm just not quite used to it. Is there any particular problem with the city? No. It's a big global city. That's just what they're like. That is what a big global city is like. If you're looking for somewhere with a lot of space, a lot of personal bubble, Paris is probably not the place for you. Summer and tourists, a match made in hell. Let me be clear, I love that Paris is loved. I love the passion people have for the city of Paris. Clearly, I came here for a reason, just like everyone else does. Does this mean that I'm totally zen when there are a bunch of tourists around? No, but I have adjusted my thinking and avoid certain parts of the city during these periods. You'd think that I would be used to heat coming from Australia. In my personal situation back in Sydney, I was in a part of the city where there was oceanic breeze, there was coastal breeze. There were a lot of trees around in the streets, keeping the buildings a bit cooler. Depending on where you are in Sydney, there are places to swim as well. When we arrived in Paris last year, we arrived in August, came into an apartment, and it was an oven. Did not matter if we had the windows open. It did not matter if we had the fans blasting. This apartment is an oven during summer. This is because we're at the top of our old Haussmannian building. There is poor insulation, so during winter we don't even need to turn on the heating. During summer, we can't get the heat out. Last August was probably one of the worst summers I've experienced. Housing and cost of living. Sometimes people ask me, Eliza, what is it like living in a socialist country like France? I'm sorry. All right, let's be clear. France is not a socialist country. Does it have socialist style policies? Yes. Are these being eroded by right-wingers and neoliberals? Yes. So to stay on the subject of housing, yes, there is a lot of public housing and social housing in Paris. There are reasonable protections for renters, like myself. Does that mean that they are perfect? No. There is a big homelessness problem in France. There are a lot of people who are unhoused. Ahead of the Olympics, we're seeing a lot of people who are unhoused being targeted by the police, being forced to move on. It's hard. I wish I could say that finding housing in Paris is easy. It is not. If you're watching this and you're thinking about moving to Paris, please make sure that you have accommodation sorted before you get here. I'd say for a lot of Parisians and people on the Ile-de-France, this is top of mind alongside the cost of living. So I definitely think for anyone who wants to move to Paris, it's certainly something to keep in mind. French is fun and punishing at the same time. I've been learning French for, I think, 4 years now. I'm B2, so that means that I am at an advanced level. I can keep a conversation. I can get by pretty comfortably. I definitely recommend learning the language before moving here, at least to B2 like I did. I couldn't imagine coming here with like A1, A2 French. I'm sure people do it. I don't love how hard the language is to learn. I would say that my daily study routine ranges from dedicated and consistent to lazy and non-existent, depending on the week. It doesn't help that Nick and I mainly speak English at home and with friends, though we are getting better at speaking in French together as well as socially. It is really hard to stay consistent with immersion. When I get home from work, do I want to watch the French news? Heck no. Do I always want to listen to French music? No. Do I always want to speak with my partner about serious stuff in French? No. In fact, we don't even really ever do that because I don't think it's a good idea. It's important to recognize how realistically you can integrate learning a language with your life. I'm ending this video with language because I think it's probably the lightest topic on here. I'm going to do another twin video for this one talking about all the things I love about living in Paris. And the list is long. I love Paris. I'm here for a reason, despite all of the things that myself and others like to criticize and talk about until the cows come home. There you have it. Brutally honest truths about living in Paris. Please let me know in the comments what you love or hate about Paris. Have you lived here? Have you visited? Are you a hardened local? Or, if you haven't been to Paris, what are some impressions you have of Paris? Let me know. That's all for this video, and I will see you in the next one.